All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of your favorite movie podcast, the one and only Forced Perspective. By this time, I've already lost count of what number episode we're on. I think it's 109 or 110. Adolfo, maybe you might have to clarify that for me. But
this is 109.
This is 109. All right, so welcome everybody to episode 109 of Forced Perspective. On this episode, we're going to be catching up on all of our previous movie reviews. After all, we do have one more week as of this recording, actually less than a week before Avengers Infinity War, so let's get everything else out of the way right now. We've got reviews for A Quiet Place, Blockers, Gemini, Isle of Dogs, and Rampage. But before we get into any of those, allow me to introduce my normal Forced Perspective co-host, the one and only Adolfo. What's going on, man?
Not much. Sitting here with my Not Your Father's Fruit Punch, which is a alcoholic beverage. So
spicing things up tonight, I see.
So a little plug there for this microbrew. But I'm doing okay. But you're the famous one over here.
Okay. So I guess we'll start with that then. Let's address the elephant in the room right now. For those of you who don't follow me on Twitter, first off, why aren't you? Go follow me right now at SportsGuy515. Well, that's the only way you can see the video that I'm going to refer to. So, Adolfo, you're pretty much hearing this for the first time as well. So you can sit back with the rest of the audience, and I'm going to kind of give you not so much of a play-by-play, but kind of a general overview of what's happened to me these last couple of days on the Twitter, as our boy Draven would say. So for those of you who listened to last week's show, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I alluded to the fact that I would be attending the 35th anniversary screening of Scarface at the Tribeca Film Festival. That screening actually took place this past Thursday night. So as a Scarface mark, as all of you know who are listeners to the show, I mean, we did a whole My Favorite Film series about Scarface with Big D, which is on the archives of Forced Perspective on iTunes.
Was it Big D? I thought it was Draven.
No, it was Big D. We did Draven was for Pulp Fiction.
Oh, okay. Lost count. All right.
Yeah, so it was, well, I mean, he was the Cuban of our group, so he had to be on that one.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, so I'm literally decked out in Mark mode, which means I'm wearing my new Scarface t-shirt, which I bought specifically for this occasion. The picture of which is on my Facebook, and I also put it on Twitter as well, so you can see what shirt I'm talking about. It's essentially the poster of the film in t-shirt form, in a really cool t-shirt form, actually. But anyway, so I'm even down to the. I didn't tell you this. I actually bought Scarface odd socks, and I was wearing them to the screening as well. So down to the shirt, down to the socks, I was wearing Scarface stuff. So total Mark mode.
Yeah.
So the screening starts, and by the way, this was the first time I really got to see this film with an audience, and everything about it just holds up. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people there were marks just like myself for this film. I did find out through Twitter that a lot of people that were at the screening were actually watching it for the first time, which is kind of interesting. You know, you kind of appreciate, the people who are discovering some of these gems for the first time, kind of like something like A Godfather or something like a Jaws or an E.T., one of those classic movies. Like, you can't imagine people have not seen. There's people out there that haven't seen these, and so there were a lot of people there, from what I gathered through Twitter, that were experiencing this film for the first time. And what better way to do it than with an audience as ruckus as we were, who pretty much knew all the lines, knew all the quotables, I should say, knew all the big scenes, and rightfully applauded and laughed or whatever appropriately. And after the screening, there was the reunion panel. So now the reunion panel included Brian De Palma, the director, Al Pacino, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Steven Bauer, aka Manolo, as we all love him, who Draven said on Facebook was the real victim of this story, and I gotta agree with him there. Yeah. Obviously. So I can't remember the guy's name. He's pretty much all over Twitter right now, being condemned anyway, and I think he did a rebuttal to what happened at the panel. I think his name is Jesse Kornbluth. I don't know if I'm saying his name correctly, but either way, You can find his name on Google somewhere. But he was the moderator for this panel, and things started pretty innocently enough. He asked Al Pacino. Actually, he kind of reemphasized to Al Pacino. As I understand, you were the one that came up with the idea to make this remake of Scarface. And then Al Pacino went through the whole story about how we saw the original 1932 film for the first time in Los Angeles, and he called up Marty Bregman, and then that kind of snowballed into making this version of Scarface. I believe he asked Stephen Bauer a couple of questions as well before the Michelle Pfeiffer thing happened. So I can't remember exactly what they were, but he gets to Michelle Pfeiffer. Finally, she's being asked a question at this panel, and I can't remember the exact wording because I haven't watched the video in a couple of days now. But essentially, this Jesse Kornbluth guy starts out.
He's the moderator.
He's the moderator. Yes. He starts out by saying, as the father of a daughter, I kind of want to ask you, how much did you weigh during filming? And as soon as he asked that question, pretty much, I would say more than 80% of the theater started either like heckling or booing the guy. One of the female fans that was sitting near me actually yelled out, "What kind of question is that?" Which I got a pop at. And as this was happening, I just so happened to be Snapchatting the panel. Like I did a couple of I didn't want to record the whole thing because my phone was about to die at that point, battery wise. So I recorded bits and pieces. But this particular moment, I was actually Snapchatting something, for something to put on my Snapchat profile, which I barely use since the Best Picture show.
Pure luck.
Pure luck, absolutely. This is pure luck that I was actually Snapchatting this moment, and so you could tell I wasn't that far away from the stage. I was like, you had the orchestra section, you had the mezzanine, and you had the upper balcony. I was in the middle. I was in the mezzanine section, or as they call it, the lodge at the Beacon Theater, and I could just tell from the way she reacted to the question. It's evident in the video just by how she responds to it. She's saying to herself, what kind of question is that, right? So Stephen Bauer tries to interject at the end of it, kind of make a joke to make kind of, make the whole thing a little bit more lighthearted. But the damage seemingly was done. So I just at the time, I just chalked it up to like, oh, that's kind of a stupid question, and then I kind of just forgot about it, right? So the panel ends. By the way, at the end of the panel, everybody went to the back except Stephen Bauer. He was literally out there from the moment I got up from my seat, got all my jacket on, and got all my stuff to the moment I actually walked out of the auditorium. He was still on the stage, like shaking people's hands, taking pictures with people. Like that guy's awesome. That guy's a class act. Like Pacino skedaddled out of there. So did Michelle Pfeiffer. So did the panel. But Bauer stayed pretty much the entire time. Just kind of talking to people, which is very cool of him.
So sorry, real quick. While you were talking, I'm just trying to like search stories for it, and I found one on IndieWire, and IndieWire has your tweet plugged into it.
Really?
Yeah, it's on IndieWire.
Oh, and they didn't even ask me for permission. Okay.
Well, technically, I don't think they have to because it's...
I know, I understand that, but I was gonna get to it at the end, but E asked me for permission to use the video. And now this asked me for permission to use the video. The E tweets I didn't see till like a day after, so by the time I actually saw it, they had already used somebody else's video. But I DM'd the reporter and I said, sorry for responding so late. I literally just saw this tweet and I saw you already used somebody's video, but I appreciate you asking me beforehand. And she said, you're welcome and whatnot. And then the Now This person, I don't know if they actually used it or not, but I haven't even looked for an article on Now This. Maybe I'll try to during the show at some point. But anyway, so I leave the auditorium. I'm kind of ecstatic. I got to see the actors in my favorite fucking movie of all time.
So wait, real quick, how long did the panel go on?
About a half hour, over a half hour, I think.
After that point, or total?
Wait, what do you mean?
After the infamous moment? Or
about maybe like 20 minutes after it ended.
Okay.
Because it was still kind of a long way to go. But the panel as a whole lasted about a half hour. But anyway, so I'm leaving. Like, I'm still kind of, in Mark mode. Like, oh my God, I just saw these actors that I've admired for years in my favorite movie, like live and talk about the movie. Like, it was a pretty thrilling experience as a Scarface Mark. So I get to the train station to head home, and I just start randomly just scrolling to Twitter, seeing what people are talking about as far as the movie or as far as the panel. Because I didn't think much of what happened. Like I said, I just thought of it as like, oh, that was a stupid question, and then kind of just went about living my life, right? So, so I go through Twitter and I start seeing some of the female film journalists that were at the screening talk about how the question was, came off very sexist, or came off very tone deaf, or it came off this and that, and I kind of saw people kind of actually doubting that it happened like that. So I responded to some of them. I forgot who. I think it was the IndieWire reporter. I think it was her. I can't remember. But I responded to one of the tweets saying, for those that are doubting, yes, that actually happened. And then at that point, I decided to share the Snapchat video. I saw that I had actually saved it to my camera roll. So I saved the Snapchat video, and I said, you know what? I don't see any videos of this yet. Why don't I post mine up so that people can actually hear it for themselves how this went down? So I post it. I start sharing it around too to like some of the other like the reporters that were talking about it on Twitter. So I replied to it by sharing the video on a few of them, and then I shared it on my own Twitter proper, and I got a few hits, a few likes, a few comments that night. But then the next day, dude, while I'm at work, my phone, I don't want to say literally, but figuratively explodes. Figuratively explodes with like this, like that, retweeted that, reply to your tweet. This went on for about maybe, 12 hours straight. It was nothing but like likes and replies every like 5 to 10 seconds. I was getting the pop-up. Liked, reply, retweeted. And I'm like, holy shit. By the time I got out of work that Friday, and I'm heading back to Brooklyn because I had to go to an Alamo screening, it had reached about maybe 150 likes, maybe 60 retweets. By the time I got to dinner Friday night, it had already passed 1,000. 1,000 likes, about maybe 300 or 400 retweets, and there were Twitter fights going on under the video, because as we've seen with other articles, not necessarily this one specifically, but in other articles, mostly political, we have the people calling, the feminists, or the people that usually take up these causes, as snowflakes, SJWs, and using very pejorative and very negative terms towards them. And then, of course, you have people on the other side who were saying, oh, what a sexist. That's such a sexist question. This is how women still get treated in Hollywood. This is disgusting. And there's a lot of back and forth going on that Twitter. Now, I did my best to stay out of it. I replied to a couple of them that I thought would be reasonable. And granted, they were. There wasn't a lot of like insults hurled. Like, there was one thread that I actually did reply to that seemed pretty, innocently back and forth, which I appreciate. Because if I already get that vibe, you're gonna call me a cuck or a snowflake, or you're gonna use names and do the whole name calling route like a Trump supporter would. I don't engage with that. I don't need that kind of negativity shit in my life. So I stayed away from all of that for the most part. So I only kind of engaged people that seemed reasonable, and they pretty much were reasonable. But the attention that this got, it was like, holy fucking shit. It like I said, for about 12 hours straight, it was like nonstop on my phone, to the point where I had to turn off the notifications, because or else I wouldn't be able to like do anything without the stuff popping out on my phone. I think in yesterday was Saturday. It's kept going for about maybe another 8 or so hours in the morning. Like from the time I woke up to about maybe like 2 or 3 o'clock ish, it kept going. And then around 4 o'clock, it finally started to die down. Today, I got maybe a few here and there. It wasn't that bad. But for those of you interested who are not on my Twitter, which, again, you really should be, the final numbers for this video have peaked at 423,000 views of the video, 783 retweets, 2,077 likes, and 148 comments.
Damn.
And yeah, this is probably as famous as I'm going to get on the Twitter. But this has been kind of a interesting experience. Now, I did text Adolfo Friday night because I'm not gonna identify her by her ideology. I'm just gonna say some woman. And if you're on my Twitter, you can see who this is. Instead of actually addressing the video or addressing what the controversy is, she decided to address that I used the word infamous in my tweet improperly. So I pretty much schooled her on the definition of the term. Now, was I being a bit hyperbolic? Sure, I will concede that maybe using the word infamous in this instance was a bit hyperbolic, and I concede to that.
No, it fits in this. It totally fits.
But to have her just come down on me for using that word instead of actually addressing the controversy of why the video was becoming, notorious and infamous, was a very, let's just say a very Trumpian move. And, just by that, you can kind of see where her allegiances lie. So that's all the attention I'm going to devote to that, because for the rest of it, I kind of just was that Michael Jackson gif on Twitter. I just took my popcorn out and enjoyed all the comments and infighting that was going on underneath the video. But yeah, like Adolfo said at the beginning of this, I did become semi-famous. I got quite a few followers now as a result of this. Yeah, so if you're listening to this for the first time, welcome. And this was some last couple of days, man.
That's pretty impressive, though. Pretty cool.
Yeah, but now we can talk about the essence a little bit, and I think I know where you're gonna go with it. So I'm sure you watched the video. You've seen you've seen and heard, I'm sure, both sides, and I kind of know how you are with things like this. So I just want to, maybe you don't have to go into it too much, because I know you want to keep politics out of the show. But what's your impression of this? Was the guy being tone deaf on purpose? Was he being sexist on purpose, or was it just a matter of, hey, I got what he was trying to say, he just worded it like a dumbass? Or what, or is it just a complete overreaction? Like, what do you think about all this?
Now, I'll liken judges from what I saw on the video and what I read on his what he tried to defend afterwards. At best, he was a dumbass and worded it very, he didn't read the room right and worded it poorly at best. I don't even know if I would give him that much credit, though. I think he was trying to be, what's the word, provocative,
right,
and failed miserably.
And the thing about
he didn't fail, because he did provoke a reaction.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think it backfired on him spectacularly.
And I think what was probably the most insulting out of all of it, it wasn't so much the question, because again, I sat there and I laughed at it at the time it happened. But I still understood the context of it. Like I got why I got what he was trying to say by that question, because like a lot of people pointed out on Twitter, especially underneath the video, actors are asked when it specifically involves a role. Actors, even male actors like Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto, have been asked a similar question about their weight and how much they lost.
But the difference is.
Which there's a difference, and I'll let you explain it then.
The difference is that you might think it's a double standard, and perhaps you might, some might be right in saying that. But the difference is that when someone like Christian Bale gains or loses weight for The Machinist or Batman, or Robert De Niro gains weight for Raging Bull, yeah, people ask, how much weight did you gain? How much weight did you lose? Blah, blah, blah. But when they're not in films like that, when they're in just normal acting roles that don't require a body change, they're never judged on by their looks ever. Like when was the last time someone judged Robert De Niro by his looks? They just judge him on his acting talent. They judge Christian Bale on his acting talent. They judge Matthew McConaughey, who lost all that weight for what was that movie? Dallas
Buyers Club.
They judge him by his talent, but they don't really ever talk about. I mean, yeah, so you might have people for someone like Matthew McConaughey, who's like a handsome guy, or Christian Bale, who's a handsome guy. They might there might people in generally might be talking about their looks, but their looks aren't don't tend to play major contributing factors to them getting work, as opposed to women who that does, unfortunately for them, female actresses are judged on their looks, and they are judged on their looks and if they get roles or not. So that is the major difference here. So it's not. I mean, yeah, it's a double standard. You can ask guys, but not women. But when you look at it, that there's another double standard also, that women are constantly being judged by their looks, by their weight, by their age, whereas men aren't. So that's really what we're looking at here. So if he didn't think about that, he's an idiot, or he's willfully ignoring it. So,
and the thing, and again, but what I was trying to say before was that the thing that probably insulted me the most wasn't the question itself, because yeah, I did get where he was coming from, but the fact that he tried to kind of shield himself by saying he was the father of a daughter, that's what insulted me the most.
Yeah, that's also
obviously like, that was what he was trying to use as a shield.
Yeah,
from
totally was.
From anything.
That's a bullshit. Yeah. That's a bullshit thing too. You know what that's like? That's like saying, like, hey man, I'm not racist. I have a black friend, right? Like,
exactly. It was the black friend thing.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
I'm not a sexist. I have a daughter. It's like, come on, man.
Exactly, but to your point of earlier, what you were saying about what the difference is. The difference too is that if you agree with me, Adolfo, with those other roles, specifically the Matthew McConaughey role, the Jared Leto role, the weight was an aspect of the character. How the character looked was I would say an essential part of the character, and how that kind of fit the narrative of the film. Here, that's not really a characterization of Elvira. She's just who she is. Like the way she looks, like as far as like her actual body image, isn't really. I don't want to say it's that important. I don't want to say it's not important, but it's not as essential to her character in this film, in the story that this film's trying to tell, as other parts of her character. Yeah, people have been arguing, well, they're trying to. I mean, she's a coke addict, so that's how coke addicts pretty much look. Which I don't know if that's necessarily true, but maybe in most cases. But again, how her body looked wasn't really an important factor in the story, in her story that the film was trying to tell, which is what I've been trying to tell people, all weekend, as far as what the difference was as well. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, it's not really important to the role. So it's like. I mean, he what did he say? Like, I'm concerned about the body image, blah, blah,
image,
blah.
Yes.
Like, it's like, dude, first of all, you're a dude. You're not the one to, like, stick up and start to fight for women. Let a woman ask that question if you're really that concerned about it, right? And second of all, like, you're so concerned about the way a woman was portrayed on screen, 35 years ago? Like 35, right? 35 years ago.
Yes,
like
35.
It was 35 years ago. Like anybody she influenced, she's not influencing people now. She's influencing whoever. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what kind of question is that? It's just a stupid question. That guy deserves. Like, I hope that this ruins his panel hosting forever, because he's an idiot.
Oh my god! I said the same thing
also,
for the most
part.
part.
That's not the time to do to make a political statement or something. You're talking about a fucking movie from 35 years ago that, in all honesty, I know you love it, and I love it too, but it's a silly movie whenever you look at it, right? It's this really hyped up, it's appropriate that it's cocaine that they're in the movie. It's hyped up on cocaine gangster movie that with ridiculous characters and Al Pacino doing a ridiculous accent, right? I love the movie, but it's a really broad film, right? It's not the time you're there to reminisce and talk about how did it get made, what was it like during the filming, blah blah. These are standard questions you ask. You don't have to fucking ask a fucking political question about your body image and influencing young girls and daughters. Shut the fuck up. Come on.
Yeah, I pretty much, there were some threads that I commented on, and on other tweets about this, where I basically said, if let's say hypothetically I had been chosen to moderate such a huge panel like this, and I actually asked such a stupid question like that, I'd probably have to kick my own ass just out of I guess penance for doing that. I even said to somebody else too. I said, if you're picked for a moderator for something like this, for such an important panel for a film festival, and you don't know how to properly word questions, because people were defending, I was like, oh, leave him alone, he just worded it poorly. I knew what he was trying to say, and I'm kind of in that boat as well.
You're supposed to be professional.
Exactly. But at the same time, if you're a moderator and you don't know how to professionally, respectfully, and I forgot what the other word I used was, but if you can't do any of those things while asking your questions, then you have no business moderating anything. So, let's hope that, he learns from this, and I'm sure he's not going to get picked for any moderating jobs for the foreseeable future because of this. But before we move on, I do want to kind of ask you one more thing about this. Because I know there have been like some, I'll just say it like this. Just there have been some, feminist / SJW, causes that have popped up in recent months or so. And I've seen you comment on your Facebook saying, you got to pick your battles. This is, one of the ones we need to be focusing on right now. Do you feel that way about this one?
I don't think this is a battle to even pick. That's the issue. Like, this is not even a battle that this guy needs to pick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's in general.
But what I'm asking, because this whole thing blew up, like, do you think this should be something that that side should be paying attention to, or are they just overblowing something that's not as important? You know what I'm saying?
I'm not sure which question you're at. Like, the reaction to the question or the question itself?
Maybe more so the reaction to the question.
The reaction to the question I think is appropriate because this guy needs a drumming. Like, this guy needs to be embarrassed. It's not even a matter of like political correctness or whatever. It's a matter of like, you are an idiot and you deserve to be called on it over and over again until you're embarrassed and humiliated. But I mean, that's how I see it. Like, the opposite, like what he's trying to get at is a legitimate topic, right? As far as body image issues and the way women are portrayed in the media. But the way he did it was absolutely stupid. And I think he was going more for a reaction than he was a legitimate answer to the question.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Even as someone who understood what he was trying to ask, he did it horribly. He did it like a fucking asshole, a tone deaf asshole, I should say.
And I don't think he did it like, I don't think he came from like a genuine place. I think he did it to like, he was trying to
be provocative.
He was trying to be provocative. He wasn't, I don't think he was legitimately concerned with the state of women and media and how they portray women in media and how it influences girls. Like, I don't think that's what, I mean, that might be what he was like, it's like a shield, right? That's what he was trying to say. Like, that's what he was, what should I say? That is what he was trying to pretend was his cause, but honestly, I think he was just trying to, like, get attention. That is my issue with it.
Right. And, again, for those who want to watch the infamous video I took, it's on my Twitter at SportsGuy515, which I'm going to plug again at the end of the show. Give it another like, maybe get it up to 2100 at this point, And I didn't mention this too, that the my tweet did actually make the Twitter moment story about this incident. Yeah.
When I logged onto Twitter after that, I saw that in there. I was like, oh, look at that.
And which was kind of weird.
I don't know if I ever actually liked it. Let me look if I liked it. I don't know if I ever actually did. If I don't, I'm gonna go give it a like right now. I think I did. Yeah. I thought I did.
Yeah, but yeah, this was a trippy experience for me. So I'm glad I got to share it here with all the loyal listeners of the show. And I mean, you're really hearing this story for the first time too. So this is just been a trippy couple of days. So moving on, let's start our.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to get the notification in a few seconds anyway.
There,
so,
I just liked it.
There we go. Boom. Okay, so let's move on to our review portion of the show. We're gonna start actually. This is what I think we alluded to last episode that we really did want to talk about. We just couldn't fit it into last week's episode. Um, Probably next to Ready Player One. This is my favorite film of the year. I'm I don't know if I should say this now, but I'm fully expecting the Avengers to knock it off the first
Oh,
place pedestal.
don't jinx it.
Don't jinx it, right? Yeah,
Don't jinx
but
it. I was actually thinking about this today before we get onto this review. I was thinking about it today and just kind of just going through like Twitter and social media, and I was just bombarded by like all the Avengers stuff, and I started thinking to myself, this could suck. Like,
what if it could be Phantom Menace, bro?
It could be Phantom Menace, or it could be, on a lesser extent, it could be Age of Ultron, a movie that we were like positive on, but like at the end of the day, we're like, eh.
It was like meh,
Yeah. It could be, that. Like, they've, since Ultron, I think they've had a good record. We got, Civil War, we got Homecoming, we got Thor Ragnarok.
Black Panther.
Black Panther, right? Sorry, I got a notification on something. Yeah. So it could suck. So I'm just concerned. I'm just a little concerned.
Yes, but again, I don't mean to jinx it, but I just kind of have that already feeling in the back of my head, going into this week's release of Infinity War. But the movie I'm alluding to, for those of you who haven't figured it out, is A Quiet Place, directed by and starring our boy Jim Halpert, better known by his real acting name of John Krasinski, and also starring his wife Emily Blunt. Adolfo, why don't you tell us a little bit about A Quiet Place and give us your thoughts?
All right, so Quiet Place is a horror movie set in, like, I would say the near future. You don't really know what the time frame is, but it's after some sort of kind of apocalyptic event, where basically the movie kind of plays it kind of secretive for the beginning. You just see like nobody can talk. Everyone's kind of very quiet. You see kind of a newspaper headline that says like basically says like the everything is everyone's dead. So and it says follows his family, John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, and their 3 children at first. And this isn't really a spoiler, so I'm gonna kind of get into it now. Where and basically the world is kind of being taken over by these monsters that they're blind, but they can hear you. They have like excellent hearing, and they know exactly where you are. So when you're out and about, you have to always be super, super quiet. So the movie kind of kicks off with one of the children accidentally kind of setting off a little electronic toy that warns the monsters, and unfortunately the child is no more, which leaves the rest of the family kind of to kind of mourn that loss and then move on from there for the rest of the film. I'm not going to get into any more spoilers, but it's kind of in the trailer. I'm not going to really spoil anything, and that happens in like the first couple minutes. So the rest of the film, it's them trying to kind of survive in this world. They live on a farm. They've got like an elaborate system of elaborate warning system involving lights. They use sign language to talk to each other. And one of the children is deaf, so kind of gives them gives the film a perfect excuse as to why they know sign language in the first place. Because you kind of get the feeling that this has only been going on for maybe a year.
Right.
And then as the movie goes on, one thing happens that turns into another thing, and things go wrong, and then the monsters find them, and then they have to survive. And that's kind of the basic plot of the story. So John Krasinski directs here. He's I believe I don't think he wrote it, or he at least co-wrote it, and he directs the film. Emily Blunt co-stars as his wife and is his real life wife as well. You have the other 2 children are Millicent Simmons and Noah Jupe, which is a great name. And kind of what I would like to say about this film is that it's basically a silent film. Now, there's a couple moments of sound, like in the actual sound effects and sound design, but as far as speaking, as far as dialogue goes, there's very, very, very little. There's a moment in the middle of the movie where they're near like a really loud river, so they can actually talk in a normal voice. But other than that scene, and maybe like 1 or 2 others, for the most part, this plays as a silent film. You could literally watch this on mute and get the exact same thing out of it. I think that Krasinski. Now he is. I looked at his filmography, and he has actually directed 2 other features before, which I didn't actually know. So I thought this was his debut, but it's not his debut. So he's actually done 2 other features before. They're very small, look like very small independent things. But this is kind of his first kind of looks like more or less medium budget movie, and he did a lot with it. I think, and he proved himself to be a very good filmmaker as far as building suspense. And drama and using this kind of, I don't want to call it a gimmick, but almost a gimmick with this kind of sign language kind of movie. I really enjoyed this film. I think I think Krasinski pulled off kind of a really excellent horror movie here. Really suspenseful. Really, there are points where he finds really good points where sound happens, where you kind of start kind of gripping your seat, like, oh crap, because the monsters are going to find them. And I've heard a couple, I've heard in the kind of the marketing of the film, that you saw like some people say, so quiet in the theater you could hear people munching their popcorn, and it's actually true. I heard people eating their popcorn. So yeah, I hope that this movie gets some recognition for its sound design on top of everything else, because the sound effects were fantastic. Because when nobody is talking, you hear all the ambient noise, and it's really amplified. And I don't know if they artificially amplified it, or it's just because there's no talking, you can hear everything going on, and it's really kind of a great suspense builder. Oh, one other thing as far as the suspense building is that the wife is pregnant, and very pregnant towards the end of the film. And of course, I think you see it in the trailer. You see her go into labor. So it's really, really great film. I have nothing but good things to say. Actually, I do have a couple criticisms, but let's get your take first.
So I actually got to catch an early screening of this at Alamo Drafthouse. I believe it was a Wednesday night screening. It was only for the Victory members, and I managed to catch one of the last seats.
You're a Victory member?
Damn right. I managed to catch one of the last seats in the theater, because it's so weird. I actually I got the email about the screening, and then right as I saw it and I logged on to try to get a ticket, there were like 3 seats left. So like, oh my God, like, that got snatched up pretty quick. So I managed to catch one of the last 3 seats in the theater for this screening. And so I was one of the first people to actually see, other than, the press screenings that were probably held that entire week. And I got to say, I just came out of there just completely amazed at what I had just seen. Such a technical marvel, I think, that, that Krasinski and crew were able to pull something like this off. I mean, this is easily something that could have, I guess the proper phrase would be put off some casuals from maybe enjoying it, just because of the silent aspect of it, just because of, they're used to like having action, on practically every other frame. And this is something that's kind of using, an overall theme of no sound, of silence, to kind of tell its story, which I thought it did beautifully. And the scenes particularly where there were sound, like, it made you realize that, all of us take sound for granted, and, I would say probably agree, maybe 80% of this movie is complete and total silence. And the parts where there are sounds, I'm not going to spoil which parts those are, but there's particularly some heartwarming scenes that have sound in them. And those things, particularly with John Krasinski and his son, just made you appreciate like how much just all of us in general take sound for granted. Because when you get to hear them, it's almost welcoming. I think that's how it's meant to be anyway. It's meant to be kind of more of like a welcoming aura to it, and you realize like, holy crap, this is something that, again, I keep saying it, but it's true. This is something that we take for granted. And the way that it's used, I thought it's just so beautifully executed. And the way that the kind of the narrative unfolds with, like you alluded to already, with the other son that happens at the beginning, all the way up until which is in the trailer, by the way, up until the big scene with Emily Blunt in the bathtub. That was very uneasy to watch. That made the suspense here is heightened almost to like, I don't want to say unprecedented levels. That'd be a bit hyperbolic, but it was notched up as far as, as I've seen in a movie in a long time. And the way it was done was just done so well, and it was able to kind of amplify all of my senses. And I'm sure all the senses of the rest of the audience as well. And I mean, I was just so amazed by this movie. Like and there were people that I talked to that really didn't care for it, really didn't like it, which, and again, I respect your opinion, but I came out of it just like, wow, like this was awesome. I think Krasinski has only directed maybe like one or two other movies before this. But man, I see this guy getting behind the camera more often now because of the success of this movie, just how great he was able to pull this off and everything. And we've talked about this on the show before too, that there's a lot of movies, particularly horror movies, that use jump scares very poorly or very what's the word I'm looking for? Very phony in a very phony way. Where like there's one on like every other frame, it seems, and it just kind of takes away
you can
from.
See they're predictable, you know when they're coming.
Exactly, and it kind of takes away from the effect. But here, there's maybe a handful of jump scares, and yeah, they're pretty awesome. They're used very well.
They're used well, but for the most part, the film doesn't rely on jump scares. It relies on tension. Right. There's a couple of good ones. Like there's one. I'm trying to figure out how to do it without spoiling it.
Well, the raccoon one was good.
The raccoon one, the man in the woods.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say about that. The man in the woods. And yeah, I don't want to give away to anything else, but it was really. I mean, he really knew how. I am very impressed with Jim from The Office. I gotta be honest. Like I did not know that he had this kind of ability to direct a movie. And there's one thing that we talked about how the film, one of the characters is deaf, right?
Right.
And what's interesting, the way he does it is so interesting because she's deaf without anybody telling you she's deaf, based purely on the sound design. And that by that is that when you're with her, you have her point of view, or should I say her point of hearing, and all of a sudden all the sound drops out. Like, and for a movie that is as quiet as this movie, that it's really just ambient noise, like trees rustling, leaves like kind of on the ground crunching or whatever, right? It's all that is when that's all you hear. When all of a sudden even that's gone, it's even a little more eerie. So that's how and they do make it more blunt later on. Whenever, no pun intended, blunt, more blunt later on. Whenever she John Krasinski gives her like a hearing implant, like a hearing aid. But before that point, she's deaf because of the way that they treat the sound. The sound literally drops out from the film, which I think is a really interesting way to do it.
And I don't know about you, but I've seen critics compare this to kind of Get Out as far as some of like its features, especially more of its commentary. When I was watching this, I don't know if you got the same vibe, but I got it was reminded me of Don't Breathe in a few of the sequences where, like, especially the one where like they're running around in the dark, like in that dark room. And like and you can see like, from the camera, like you can see like their pupils dilated, and it's all just, it's all black except for that. Right. It reminded me of that, except obviously with sound. And and let me ask you this as well. The silence of the film, because like we said, about 80% of this movie has literally no sound in it. So it really opened up the cinematography more. Like, it made you kind of appreciate the visuals more, because there was no like big, let's say, orchestral to kind of accompany like a beautiful image, and there was no like sound to kind of indicate that kind of guides your feelings towards how you're supposed to feel about an image. No, you just got to see the image for what it was, and it kind of heightened that sense in you, like you just had the raw visual to kind of suck in and appreciate. And I thought that that was another great aspect, that it made you focus on the visual, maybe more than you normally do when watching a movie, because you have kind of the sound to kind of either direct you to your feelings or to kind of just amplify what you're looking at. So that was kind of a cool aspect as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think everything was really well handled, except for one thing, and this is what I'm going to get to. When you finally see the monster, like, I'm not impressed with the monster design. I got to be honest. Like, that was my one. I kind of wish we would have gotten, like, it would have been like you never saw it. Now, I know that there's a. How do I put this? There's a reveal on how to defeat them in later in the movie that I understand you kind of had to have a visual for, but I almost wish we wouldn't have seen the monster, because I didn't really like the design of it. I thought it was kind of, I don't want to say generic, but it kind of forgettable. Like, I can't even remember what the monster looks like right now. Like, whereas opposed to like the xenomorph and alien or the predator and predator, like, you know what you can immediately conjure up that image, right? I can't conjure up the image of this monster right now. I think the design of the monster was a little lacking. That's my only complaint about the film.
Okay, I can see that. I really didn't have a problem with it. I just thought it was kind of a weird looking design for it. But I mean, I wasn't really like taken too aback by it. I just thought, okay. I mean, I was like, whatever. Like, I wasn't like, not liking the design or anything. It was just a whatever to me. But yeah. But I mean, other than that,
and that's the thing. It shouldn't be whatever though. Like, it should be a memorable, cool monster. You know what I mean?
I see where you're getting at.
Every memorable movie monster you can think of, you know what you can remember it in your head. Where it's like, if you don't see this movie again until the DVD or Blu-ray comes out, you're not going to remember what that monster looks like. It's a very forgettable looking monster.
I see your point. Yeah, and I'm inclined to agree with that as well. But I mean, other than that, I mean, pretty much everything about this movie, from the acting, from the visuals, the cinematography, just from the sound editing and sound design, which, or lack thereof, as we should say, because like I said, there is no sound in a lot of it.
It's not a lack of. It's purposely like
no. But that's what I mean, though. I don't mean like a lack of sound editing or anything. I mean just kind of the lack of sound. That was kind of the joke I was alluding to. But but everything is just so well executed, so well done, and the storytelling is just enthralling. So I think by now it's pretty much out of a lot of the theaters. But if it's still playing near you,
it's still making a lot of money, I thought.
I mean, out of my big multiplexes, they're pretty much gone. Like, some
really?
of the smaller ones are still showing it.
Well,
but
they had to make room for I Feel Pretty, I guess.
I guess so. And then
it's still showing around me. I'm still seeing like almost every theater around me is still playing it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's making a lot of money. It's already. I mean, it cost $17 million and it's up to $200 million. So,
yeah. With Jimmy Halper, bro, raking it in.
But I mean, it is a horror movie. Horror movies are notoriously cheap to make, but it's still. Yeah. I mean, this isn't even. I mean, this is one set. One location, 5 cast members. So,
yeah, pretty simple enough. But I mean, if it's still playing near you, definitely give this a chance. Give this a shot. I think you'll all be pleasantly surprised by it. So it's a definite recommend from me.
So one thing I would like to point out is that what I hope doesn't happen with this film is that they sequelize or franchise it, because I'm not going to get into it, but the end of the film, you could potentially go in that direction. That's all I'm going to say about the end of the film. But you could go in that direction.
So this could be a Walking Dead / Fear the Walking Dead situation.
I don't want it to happen. I think it's perfect. It is a perfect. Oh, that's the other thing. It's like 90 minutes. It's like in and out, 90 minutes, perfect. Like, and it's a perfect little movie. And that's it. That's all I want it to be. Like, don't sequelize this thing, because I could totally see it happening. Especially if, because right now, kind of like you said, Fear the Walking Dead, whatever, we only know what's happened in this kind of section of the world, right?
Right.
And they don't really get into what's happening everywhere else, right? So I really just want this to stay how it is.
A Quiet Place, London.
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like I don't want that to happen. Like like I feel like something like this, a sequel would kind of diminish it a little. So I don't.
Which, if you remember, and I hate to bring this up, but if you remember, I think The Happening tried to go that route too. It's just the movie sucked and it never. Because if you remember the ending of The Happening, I think they're like in London or something, and then like the trees start rustling to allude to like a possible sequel. But that movie was so bad anyway that
I've never actually seen The Happening. I've only seen clips of it.
Oh, okay.
That's okay.
But anyway,
it's okay I think that's spoiled it because I'm never gonna watch that.
Yeah. Yeah, the honest trailer is good enough. If you've seen that, that's all you need to see for the movie. But anyway, but yeah, I agree with you. Like, just leave this as a one shot, because we don't, and don't make this like The Purge. We're gonna get the first Purge, I think, coming out this year. Like, do we really need to know how it started?
I don't know, but I do like the marketing campaign, though. I got to be honest.
Me too. I do.
I think that's a really good. That is a really good. That's quality burn right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Which we're not going to get into. You could all look it up for yourselves. But anyway, that's A Quiet Place. Again, we highly, highly recommend this movie. Definitely check it out while you still can in theaters. Because I think, you know what? Again, just real quick too. I think watching it at home, which I will be doing many times after I get the Blu-ray, it won't be the same. There's just some movies like this movie where the theatrical experience really is kind of like the defining one. Without it, kind of like with Annihilation. Like, this is something that you really need to see in a theater to kind of get the whole experience, especially with an audience.
God damn it!
And I don't know if you'll be able to.
Goddamn bear again. I got that bear out of my fucking nightmares. Now you brought it back in there. God damn! That's such an unnerving scene.
It really is, and it's just executed so well too. But I think that's kind of gonna get a little bit taken away by seeing it at home. In the comfort of your own home. Like, seeing it with an audience in a theater kind of heightens the tension up just a little bit more. So while you still can, definitely check this out in theaters for the experience. So that's A Quiet Place. So let's move on to our next film. One we've been wanting to talk about for a while now, actually. I've been waiting for this guy on the other side here to finally see it. Isle of Dogs, which, by the way, I don't know if you figured this out, Adolfo, but I forgot who pointed out on Twitter. I think it was Edgar Wright. I don't remember. It might have been somebody who maybe was interviewing him and he figured it out or whatever. I can't remember, but somebody figured out that if you say Isle of Dogs quickly,
you're saying I love dogs.
I love dogs. Yeah. Yep.
And I thought about that too.
I read that and I'm like it was like. Like, my mind was just blown. Like, holy crap! Like, smooth move, Wesley Anderson. So,
except like I would give him more credit for that if it wasn't for the fact he fucking kills a dog in every one of his goddamn movies, and he kills some in this one too.
That's true. That's very true. But
he doesn't kill the dog in Life Aquatic. He just like leaves it to die.
Oh God, I remember that movie too. We were talking about, it was Moonrise, right? Where it happened.
Kills him in Moonrise. He kills one in Rushmore. Or wait, not Rushmore. Royal Tenenbaums. He kills a cat in Grand Budapest.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That was pretty. I think those are all of them. But still, like that's a lot of pet murder.
Yeah, but nice little pun there on the title, Wesley Anderson. But anyway, so Isle of Dogs. Directed by Wes Anderson. It's like this was his second animated film after Fantastic Mr. Fox. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, and starring the voice talents, because this guy loves to assemble such a wacky crew of Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Bill Murray, Jeff Goldblum, Bob Balaban, who he likes to use a lot in his movies. Ken Watanabe, bro. Our boy Ken Watanabe. Greta Gerwig, Frances McDormand, Harvey Keitel, Liev Schreiber, Scarlett Johansson, and Tilda Swinton, among others. There's quite a few people, even Yoko Ono, who I saw that, I was like, holy crap, Yoko Ono's in this. But anyway, so just very quickly, in the dystopian near future Japan, in the city of Megasaki, as the trailer voice or narrator likes to say it, the city of Megasaki, this authoritarian regime led by Mayor Kobayashi, signs a decree to banish all dogs from the city, and they're all pretty much exiled to a place called Trash Island, the Isle of Dogs. So the crutch of the story has to do with a boy who actually flies into Trash Island to search for his dog Spots, who, as we find out in the beginning of the film, was one of the first. I think it was the first dog that was sent to the island when the decree was passed. Um, and then it has to do with a group of dogs that live on Trash Island: Rex, King, Duke, Boss, and Chief, kind of trying to help this boy find Spots and get reunited with his dog. And not to give too much away, because I do want people to see this, so the story kind of has its twists and turns, and it takes off from there. I thought I love the thing about Wes Anderson movies is that they have their own unique style, each and every one of them, and you can tell you're watching a Wes Anderson movie just by some of the little quirky aspects that he likes to use. And this was no different. I loved the story because it was we know what it is. It was very straightforward. It's a very simple one, but at the same time, there's a lot of themes that he kind of tackles here that kind of give the story more depth, and it gives it kind of more of that rewatchability that I really like with his movies. The voice crew, particularly the dogs, Eddie Norton as Rex, Bob Balaban as King, Bill Murray as Boss. My favorite, bro, Jeff Goldblum as Duke was probably my my MVP here, just because he had like that one gag throughout the whole movie that I absolutely loved. Like, oh, did you hear about the rumor about that? Like he had like a rumor for like every single act in the movie, and it was all like wacky stuff, and I actually love that. Our boy Jeffrey Goldblum getting a payday here, and so well deserved as well. And I mean, truthfully enough, I mean, I don't have that much to say about it because it's like it is that much of a straightforward story that kind of has more depth due to its themes. But I love the story. Like, I love the ride that this movie took me on. It does get very emotional. It does kind of pull at the heartstrings, especially at the end. It has that almost obligatory Wes Anderson like pull on the heartstrings, heartfelt moment, especially at the ending. And I mean, I came out of that and I just felt good. It was a beautiful story. And you could tell that there was a lot of heart put into this by Wes Anderson. This was a story near and dear to him. And he told it so well. And it was so well filmed. It was so well animated. The voice cast was stupendous as well. And I mean, that's pretty much all I have to say. So what did you think of it, Adolfo?
Fuck you, Wes Anderson.
Ah.
Fuck you so much for making me cry. I cried so much during this fucking movie, and I'm so annoyed at it. That's all I have to say. Fuck you, Wes Anderson, for making me cry. No, this movie was excellent. From pretty much start to finish. I know that there's some issues with some cultural sensitivity that I don't know.
Right.
I don't know enough about to get into. To be honest, I'm just judging the movie on its own merit. I'm not Japanese, so I don't. I guess I don't really know if I have much to say on the matter. I know that some Asian commentators found it. I don't know if they found it offensive or they found it insensitive. Again, I don't know. Maybe I'd feel differently if this was like on a Hispanic culture. I don't know. I just, to me, I'm just judging it on its own merit. I just wanted to get that out there because I know it's kind of a little bit of a controversy. Right. But as far as the film goes, it's this film is not cute, and and I say that because I saw a lot of kids at my screening, and I think it's because parents saw, oh, it's an animated film, it's about dogs, let's take our kid to see this dog movie.
Right.
And I think some of them may have regretted it because it's not cute. It's pretty grim, actually, and it's pretty sad. And there's some kind of adult themes in here. And not adult like pornographic, but like mature themes, and but at the same time, the reason this movie made me cry, And probably, I mean, okay, 90% of it had to do with the fact that I lost my dog last year, and I'm still not over it. But really, it kind of perfectly encapsulates dogs and what they're and the nature of a dog. There's a couple moments where, like, a couple lines where it kind of got to me, where the Scarlett Johansson, and this is in the trailer, I think, but it was the Scarlett Johansson dog. What's her name? Like,
I have the name right here.
her name
Nutmeg.
is Nutmeg. She says to him, like, she tells the chief, "You're gonna help him," and she goes, "Why would I do that? Because he's a 12-year-old boy, and dogs love those." And I kind of started getting a little emotional there. But the other one was whenever the other dog, because Chief is the reluctant one. He's the one that doesn't want to do it because he's a stray. And the other dogs that want to help him are all the Ed Norton, Bob Balaban, Bill Murray, and Jeff Goldblum character dogs. They all belonged to someone before they got sent to this island. They all had masters. They all had people, and they missed their people. And when this boy kind of crash lands in their island, they see this as an opportunity to kind of go back and kind of belong to a human again. And the Bryan Cranston character, Chief, is, he was a stray and he doesn't trust people, and he is against helping the boy at first, and he's trying to say, he's trying to, like, kind of talk them out of it, and he says something along the lines of, "At the end, we might not even survive this thing." And the Ed Norton character goes, "So we could die on our way helping a little boy find his dog. I can think of no better purpose than that." And I was like, "Oh, God damn it!" And because that's what a dog does, a dog is loyal and is and loves you and is loyal to you and will always, be your friend and will always do anything to help you. And I was just like, I just got too emotional. Like, this fucking movie made me cry the whole time. So, I mean, that's really what I have to say about it. It totally gets dogs. It totally kind of captures the essence of dogs, and it just made me happy and sad at the same time.
Right, and I can definitely see that. I felt a lot of those things as well. Particularly, I actually have two dogs. For those who don't know, I have one, a little dachshund, who is just turned 16 actually a couple weeks ago. So I mean, God bless her. All she likes to do now is just kind of get up, walk around for a bit, and go back to sleep. And then I have about a 1-year-old beagle that we just adopted a couple months ago, and he's very feisty, likes to run around. He's essentially still a puppy in a way, so he's very hyper. He always likes to go outside. Wants me to go outside with him, play fetch. He's very active. So I kind of have, the two different sides of the spectrum. And I miss my little Buffy. Be able to play with her too. She just kind of just wants to sleep. And on the other side having the puppy who is running to you when you get home from work or from school or wherever, and it's very it kind of pulls me in two different directions, with my feelings, because I don't like to admit this out loud either, but with Buffy, like I'm just dreading the day, because it's coming, when she's no longer with us, and I just I try to put that out of my head, because it's like I think about it and I break down just thinking about it, because I know, like, at her age it's gonna come sooner than later. So I try to just think positive and just cherish the time that she is still here with us, and with this movie, it really makes you appreciate, like you said, the essential foundation of a dog and what a dog does, and that whole point is driven across in such a beautifully told narrative. And go see it, people, especially if you're a dog lover. If you're a dog lover, you're definitely going to get a kick out of this movie. Cat lover, I don't know, because the cats are kind of treated very
the cats are the heels.
They're the heels, bro. I was going to say they're the antagonists of this whole thing. But but whether dog, cat, bird, fish lover, go see this movie. It's a great story of loyalty, a great story of friendship, and as with any Wes Anderson movie, at least only speaking for myself, obviously, you won't be disappointed. So while it's still around, definitely check this one out.
But
Isle of Dogs.
two warnings, and I need to stress this: two warnings. It's not really a kids movie unless your kid is like, I'd say maybe 9 or 10 and older. I wouldn't if they're like 8 years old or younger. I wouldn't take them. I think it might be too much for them.
Right.
And the other warning I would have is if you've recently lost a dog, you just be prepared to cry your eyes out.
Right. Absolutely.
Fucking movie, man. The whole time I was in there just fucking bawling.
Yeah, but definitely check this one out while you still can. I know this one didn't have as much of a wide release. Something like A Quiet Place.
It took like 2 or 3 weeks to get here. Like, it was in the city. It was playing in the city, but it wasn't playing here in the suburbs. It took a while to get to us. So
yeah. So while you still can, if it's still around in your local theaters, definitely give this one a watch. It's Wes Anderson hits another home run in my opinion. So definitely seek this out actively. But if not, definitely check it out. Check out the Blu-ray or Netflix. It's well worth the time. Moving on, our next movie actually is one I'm going to discuss very briefly. And I alluded to this on a previous episode. I don't know if I think it was the Essential Film Show, which, by the way, this snippet of that show is actually now up on YouTube. For those of you who are interested in checking it out, it's the one where we went into the whole Alamo thing, right? You just put that up today, I think.
I put it up as a bonus episode, yeah.
Yes. So the movie I'm referring to is Gemini. Now, Gemini, I actually saw an advanced screening of this about maybe a week or so before its actual release. Now, I don't think it got a big wide release. It was more kind of a limited run, if I'm stating that correctly. But I did see an advanced screening of this. It was paired as a double feature with The Long Goodbye, the movie with Elliot Gould that we talked about on that Essential Films bonus episode. So if you're interested in our thoughts on that, check it out there. But Gemini was paired with The Long Goodbye purposely by Aaron Katz. So real quick, so Gemini stars Lola Kirk, Zoe Kravitz, Greta Lee, Michelle Forbes, Nelson Franklin, Reeve Carney, Jessica Parker Kennedy, James Ransom, Ricky Lake, and last but certainly not least, John Cho, our boy John
Ricky
Cho.
Lake?
Yes, Ricky Lake is she's in it for a cup of coffee, but she's in it. And she's mentioned as part of the featured cast. That's why I read her name. And our boy John Cho, Harold from the Harold and Kumar films. I don't think he'll ever live that down. Like, that's all I see him as, But anyway, so essentially, it's quick synopsis. So Jill, played by Lola Kirk, is the assistant of a Hollywood starlet, Heather Anderson, who's played by Zoe Kravitz. And Heather is pretty much a party gal. She likes to live it up in Los Angeles, and yeah, Jill and Heather are pretty much friends, but there's that work relationship that they kind of have to keep that boundary. Jill is Heather's assistant, so she kind of has to do her PR when she gets into mischief, and that obviously doesn't sit well with her a lot of the time. So there is still that kind of maybe antagonism, with that part of their relationship. But one day, after a night of partying, Jill runs a few errands for Heather. She comes back to her house, and Heather is dead. So at that point, this whole whodunit murder mysteries begins, where Detective Edward Ahn, who's played by John Cho, starts to suspect Jill as maybe the one who murdered Heather. Jill kind of goes all over the city, kind of retracing Heather's last steps, going through some acquaintances and seeing what could have possibly happened to Heather. And the story kind of takes off from there with obvious references to movies like The Long Goodbye. In fact, I would venture to say that if you've seen The Long Goodbye, the ending is pretty much the same. And I apologize if that's a spoiler, but the ending is pretty much the same with a difference that I actually did not like, which I'm going to get to in a little bit. So it's obvious that Aaron Katz, and he said so actually in person, because after the screening, there was actually a bit of a Q&A at Alamo Drafthouse. Aaron Katz, and he brought John Cho with him, which I didn't know till that night that was going to happen. So I didn't get to see John Cho in person talk about the movie. So Aaron Katz actually said blatantly that, number one, he chose The Long Goodbye on purpose to be paired with this movie, just because it is a Los Angeles film, and Gemini is a film, almost a love letter to Los Angeles. Now, we've had many of these, in the past. I think the most recent one was La La Land, but it was more of a, love letter to Hollywood, more so than it was to the actual city of Los Angeles. Drive, a lot of people talk about as a love letter to Los Angeles with the way it kind of captures a lot of the landscapes, a lot of the scenery of the city, and the surrounding lands. I would say Gemini is more in the style of Drive, in that the shots of LA, the locations that it uses, especially in all of its establishing shots, it's obvious that the guy loves the city, the guy loves the aura of Los Angeles, the guy loves the town itself, and him showcasing it the way he did, and some of probably the most beautiful imagery I've seen in a movie recently. It's obvious that this was his love letter to the city. This was his love letter to kind of, again, the aura of Los Angeles, of Beverly Hills, of the whole surrounding area, of LA, of Hollywood, and it comes off so well just because the shots that he uses are taken with so much care. You could just tell it just the love of the city just oozes through the screen, and how he films it and how he takes every one of these shots. It's so deliberate that you could immediately tell how much heart is going into this. Lola Kirk is great in her role here as Jill. Zoe Kravitz is great as Heather. John Cho is amazing here as the detective in charge of solving Heather's murder. So pretty much the triple threat of these three kind of carried the story, the narrative, and I think it's done tremendously well. The tension is built up appropriately, especially in the middle part of the movie when you kind of start going in one direction with what could be the ending, and it's just like the framing of it is just done really, really well and kind of really gets you into the moment. What I did not like, unfortunately, was the ending itself and how it was executed. I thought maybe I just didn't understand it. Maybe it deserves another viewing, but the ending felt like a cop-out. It really did. And I'm sitting there at the end, like as the credits are rolling, I'm like, I have more questions than answers about this, and I don't really like this. So the ending kind of took away a lot of the goodwill that I had already built towards the movie. So I think on Rotten Tomatoes, it has maybe about like a 90% right now, maybe a little bit less now since I last checked, maybe like 88, I would say. I haven't really checked, but it should be floating around the upper 80s, early 90s range. I'd put it more of like a 70% because again, the ending really kind of killed the movie for me. I really didn't like how the ending was framed. I didn't like how it fit in the narrative. It really felt like a cop out. And you know what it reminded me of? I think I told you this. It reminded me of the Belko Experiment. That movie was done so well up until the ending, and then the ending kind of killed it. That's how I felt about this. And maybe when you eventually get to this, Adolfo, you may or may not agree with me. I'm going to definitely give it a rewatch when it comes out on home video, on Blu-ray. Because I think it does deserve a second viewing from me to really see if I've, understood it the right way. Maybe I missed something earlier or whatever. But it's a great movie. It's shot really well. It's acted really well. Just the ending really kind of killed it for me. So it's very limited release, I think. So you probably won't catch this like in any of your smaller theaters. You'll probably see it more like if you live near a city, you'll probably see it in your little art house theaters there. But I mean, if you're kind of into story like whodunits like this, I think like up to that point, the mystery aspect of the narrative is done really, really well. It kind of keeps you on your toes through every step of the story. Definitely, I would give this a watch. It's not a high recommend, but it's a give it a shot. What could go wrong type of recommend, because maybe you might feel differently about the ending than I do. The ending again kind of ruined the movie for me, but I will give it another shot once it comes out on Blu-ray. But again, it kind of took away all the goodwill I had built toward it while watching it, and I'd give it like a maybe thumbs in the middle as a result.
It's funny because I have heard no buzz on this movie. Like,
really?
Yeah, none whatsoever. Like, you were the first person I heard talk about it at all.
Wow. Oh, actually, you know what? I actually looked at the Wikipedia entry right now, and it says I don't know when it was last edited, but it says 78% now on Rotten Tomatoes. So it actually fell pretty closer to what I would probably rate it. Because when I first saw the movie, when I first attended the advanced screening, it was at like 92%. Now it fell down all the way to 78. So maybe I'm not alone in that after all. That, like I said, it's probably like the 70 range is what I would put it at. So this is probably pretty accurate now to what I was feeling. So that's interesting.
Hmm.
The website consensus reads, a kaleidoscopic neo-noir, Gemini is a visually striking murder mystery with a convoluted but largely compelling plot and an impressive showing from Lola Kirk. Yeah, so that's pretty much how I feel about it as well. So again, it's what could possibly go wrong type of recommendation, thumbs in the middle. So if you're up to it, definitely it wouldn't hurt to see it, but I wouldn't run out to see it. Maybe wait for the home video to check it out. But anyway, so that's Gemini. Moving on to our next movie. Oh, we're gonna have a little fun with this one. Let's do Blockers next. Oh boy. So as if we didn't see John Cena's ass enough already in other movies, we are treated to it again. And I'm sure a lot of the female fans listening to this will probably jump up and down at that reference, but me not so much. But I will say one thing before I let you kind of take over, Adolfo. I don't know about you, but I kind of enjoy seeing how, what's the word I'm looking for? How, I guess excited is the only word I can come up with right now. How excited John Cena seems in his new lot in life. Like he puts everything into these roles he's had lately. It just comes off the screen so much how much he's happy to be where he's at, and it shows in his acting. He's so excited in this movie the entire time. You could tell just how happy he is to be there, and it shows, and it really helps the movie along a lot with its narrative and a lot of with its comedy. But I'll let you take over for now, and then I'll get into a little more. Tell us a little bit about Blockers.
Well, that's because it's a real movie and not a shitty WWE production like The Marine Part 7 or whatever. So Blockers is a film. It's our first of two WWE star films, actually. It's about a film about the three parents played by John Cena, Ike Barinholtz, and Leslie Mann, who discover that their daughters, teenage daughters, have made a pact to lose their virginity on prom night. And then what follows is a series of wacky hijinks as those three parents, who used to be friends but have kind of drifted apart and are coming back together on this one night, try and stop that from happening, basically. And then it's kind of like a series of hijinks that, as they're trying to find out where they're partying, where the prom is, where the after party is, all this stuff to try and stop them from having sex. That's the plot.
Pretty much.
And what I will say about this film, it's fine. It's fine. It's perfectly entertaining. I guess I wasn't like rolling with laughter the whole time. There were some legitimately funny moments. But for the most part, it was like, okay, that was kind of amusing. But what I will say about it is that, yeah, I will give John Cena some credit here. He did come off very well. He came off very goofy and kind of lovable and what's the word I'm looking for? Endearing, I guess, maybe. Like he did kind of put a lot into this role. I agree with you. And he seemed like he having a generally good time in this film. He had really good chemistry with the other two leads, I think. And some good chemistry with the girl that played his daughter, Geraldine Viswanathan, I believe is how you say it.
Let's go with that.
What I'm surprised about this movie is that it's actually, well, it is pretty conventional in a lot of ways and pretty predictable in a lot of ways. What I'm surprised at is it kind of takes a pretty progressive view towards sexuality, and especially when it comes to women's sexuality. Because we've seen this kind of movie before, like the teenager loses their virginity movie. I mean, famous example is American Pie, and that follows a bunch of dudes around. And there are women in that movie as well, but they're really there to like be to to be had to be had sex with, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
that's what they're there for. Whereas you follow the guys, and like in general, the movie kind of in that film, you see nothing wrong through your perception. You see nothing wrong with these guys trying to have sex and trying to lose their virginity. Of course they would. That's totally normal teenage behavior. But in this film, like the parents are freaking out because like, oh, it's horrible. Until I believe it's John Cena's wife in the film kind of lays out like why is it horrible? Like you don't think that about men, but for when it comes to women, it's all of a sudden something that needs to be protected and virtuous. It's a double standard, and it kind of takes that tone for the rest of the film as far as this goes, and I think it's kind of refreshing. I think it's kind of a cool thing to do for a film. And I noticed that afterwards it was written by it was directed by a woman, and I wonder if that was her call or if it was originally in the script. But either way, I think it was a great way to kind of shift the movie. And I'm not going to say by the end, who has sex with who, but it is a very kind of refreshing take on something that I was expecting to be pretty much by the numbers. But that said, a lot of it is still by the numbers. You kind of know exactly the character arcs they're going to have throughout the whole film. The John Cena character is really overprotective. The Leslie Mann character is really doesn't want to let go of her daughter because she's a single mom, and that's the last thing that, if she goes off to college, she's not going to have anything else in her life. And the Ike Barinholtz character is the fuck up dad that's, trying to kind of mend the relationship with his daughter. And like, exactly where each of those arcs is going to go. So yeah, I mean, there's some things that are funny. Like, I thought the Gary Cole stuff was kind of amusing.
Oh God,
it was gross, but it was kind of amusing. I thought it was funny. I thought Hannibal Buress in the beginning was pretty funny. The one thing that I think that I could have done without is the butt chugging thing. I thought that was like, I don't know. I didn't think it was funny. I think it's not that I'm against that kind of humor. It's just that like it was like, okay, I guess we're gonna do this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It didn't do anything for me. I don't mind.
John Cena seemed a little too happy to be doing that scene. I gotta admit that.
I mean, he likes showing his ass a lot. I mean, he's like he's done it in 2 movies now. I don't mind. I don't give a shit. I don't care about John Cena's ass. It doesn't bother me. I'm comfortable enough in my sexuality that I don't care if I see some man. I've seen plenty of man ass in high school whenever I was in the guys' locker room when we like it doesn't bother me. But it's just like, okay, whatever. I don't know. John Cena's a highlight. I never thought I'd say that. He's kind of a highlight in this film. It's clear that Hollywood is kind of tapped into him now, and he's going to get bigger and bigger roles. I kind of hope he sticks to comedy and not action, because I think he's bad at action movies. Like I saw The Marine and I saw 12 Rounds, and they're both really bad. And I think one of the reasons they're bad, I mean, aside from the script and the directing, is that John Cena is so earnest in those films. And he doesn't like take the time to like be funny. But when he's being funny, he's more likable. And like, I think he should be more like The Rock. The Rock, and we'll get to the Rampage in a second. But The Rock, when he's in his action movies, except for like Fast and the Furious movies, where he's like he's not serious, but he's more of the badass. Where as opposed to like something like Rampage, he's much more willing to kind of look like an idiot, as on top of being a badass, and that's because he's The Rock and he can get away with that. He's charming. Where I don't think that John Cena could pull off the badass. He can't pull off the badass. So I think he needs to take more a page out of the Rock book and be the guy who can kick your ass but is also kind of funny, and not afraid to look stupid. But back to Blockers. It's okay. It's like a slightly thumbs up. I wouldn't rush out to see it. I imagine this movie. You know what this movie's going to be? This movie's going to be. It's going to be like a TBS movie in like a couple years, like playing on a Saturday afternoon. They're going to you edit out some of the racy stuff and it's going to be a TBS movie. But it's perfectly, and it's fine. I didn't hate it. It was fine.
Yeah, well, I was on the road to hating this at the beginning because I don't know about you, but to me, this movie started very slow. Like, I think about maybe the first half hour went by and I didn't laugh once, like at some of the gags. It was just, I'm just sitting there like, well, I'm waiting for it to get funny. Like, when is it gonna get funny for me? Midway through, all the way up until the climax, it was funny. I'll admit it. It was fucking hilarious, especially the as you mentioned already, the Gary Cole stuff. As disgusting as it was, the scene where they're with John Cena and Ike Barinholtz in the house with Gary Cole, that was probably the most I laughed at that movie because it was just so fucking ridiculous. And I was just the whole ridiculousness of the situation they were in and what they were doing in that moment. I was just laughing my ass off. That was probably the peak of the movie comedy wise for me. It was just so out there, so ridiculous that I had a great time with it. And
I actually laughed. I think the hardest I laughed actually was that was really funny. The hardest I laughed was whenever John Cena threw that kid into the wall. I don't know why. I thought that was hilarious. Just the way that, I don't know if that was a stunt double or CGI, but the way the kid hit the wall, I just busted out laughing.
Right. Yeah, that was a great. There was, and then like I said, like once you got midway through, there was a few great scenes in this movie. The running gag with Ike Barinholtz and the breakdancing kid was funny. that was a great gag they did. But like once the movie got to its midway point, once they actually were like on the mission to find the girls and stop them, it got good. It got funny, and I had a great time with this. So I'm glad the movie was able to kind of redeem itself after that very slow paced, first act. So I had a great time, again, like, just like you, it was fine, nothing spectacular, but I did have a great time watching this. Again, John Cena just seems like he's in his element with the comedy he's doing. I hope he pursues this more, because this is obviously like where he's good, where he fits in the spectrum of Hollywood, I guess. Comedy is his thing. He's obviously so comfortable, in his skin and his ability that he can pull all of this off, especially some of the nonsensical stuff like the butt chugging. It just comes off so naturally to him. And, he just has that charisma that we always known he had from his WWE days. And, he could go really far if he just kind of, sticks to what he's good at. And like we said already, he's obviously having a great time here. Great chemistry with Leslie Mann and Ike Barinholtz. The three girl actors, they were all great here as well. As not necessarily, as not necessary, I should say that it was. Gary Cole was good here for the cup of coffee that he was in. So was Gina Gershon. And again, it's one of those, you don't have to rush out to see it like Gemini, but it's one of those movies that when it comes on TV, there are worse things that you could stream or worse things that you could watch on television than this. I mean, if you watch it, it does its job as a comedy. You'll have a great time, and that's pretty much it. So like you, thumbs in the middle, kind of putting slightly up because I did appreciate how the film redeemed itself in my eyes with its comedy, and not a rush to go see, but definitely something to check out in the future, I think.
Yeah, it's not bad. But yeah, like I said, it's totally a TBS Saturday afternoon movie, like absolutely. But it's entertaining. John Cena, looking at his IMDb page, he's got 2 features coming up. One is the Bumblebee movie, which is the Transformers spinoff.
Right.
And the other one is as a voice in The Voyage of Dr. Dolittle, which is apparently a Dr. Dolittle remake with Robert Downey Jr.
Right?
as Dr. Dolittle.
Yeah, I heard about that one. Yeah,
and
look at the voice cast.
Yeah, he's in a star-studded voice cast. Selena Gomez is a giraffe. Kumail Nanjiani is an ostrich. Ralph Fiennes is a tiger. Marion Cotillard is a fox. Tom Holland is a dog. Octavia Spencer is a duck. Craig Robinson is a mouse. Emma Thompson is a parrot. And John Cena is a polar bear.
John Oliver's in that too, isn't it?
I don't see him in the cast here.
I thought I saw John Oliver's name there. I thought. Maybe I was mistaken.
I'm gonna look. Let me look again.
Now,
I didn't see him in here.
Hold on one second. Let me see if I can look this up. I could have sworn I saw his name. Hold on. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I confused him with somebody else. I don't know. Hold on.
I don't see his name in the credits, so I don't know.
So maybe I did confuse him with somebody else. Like I could have sworn. No. You know what it is? He's in the Lion King remake. He's Zazu. That's where I got him confused.
He is in the Lion King remake. Yes.
Yes. So that's where I got him confused. But I could have sworn it was in this one too. So I got the two animal movies confused then. Okay. So anyway, yeah. So he's got a couple.
He's got some good projects coming up. Some high profile gigs. He's second in build in Bumblebee, right behind Haley Steinfeld. So I'm assuming he's like the male action hero of that movie.
He's gonna be the Mark Wahlberg. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope he doesn't. He goes more.
Let's go more Dwayne Johnson and less Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of Dwayne Johnson, Rampage is our last film, our main event film here tonight. Based on the, I guess accurately named video game, which by the way, a little bit of trivia. I actually do own a Rampage game. I don't know if it's the first one. I have Rampage World Tour. I think that was the sequel.
That's not the first one.
That's not the first one, right? So I have Rampage World Tour for the Nintendo 64, and by the way, my sister and I on the old Nintendo 64, we killed hours on that Rampage game. It was funny because by the time we actually got it and started playing it, my controller pack, which by the way is the memory card for Nintendo 64, for those of you who don't know, was acting like it had already broken by that point for the most part. So when we try to save our game, it would never save properly, so we end up having to start the game over from the beginning each and every time we played it. I remember one time, I think we played for maybe about 3 hours straight, and we got to like level 150 of this game. But the thing about the Rampage games, and I'll say real quick, is they're very repetitive. Like every level is essentially just you as either George, Lizzie, or Ralph just destroying a city. That's it. That's all it is. You're climbing buildings, you're punching the windows, you're eating people, you're eating other things, you're stomping on tanks, you're stomping on people, you're demolishing buildings. It's very very simplistic. You know, not a lot of strategy or thought going into the game. So it can get very repetitive and boring after like an hour. But I don't know what happened that day. She and I were just on there for like 3 hours straight doing the same thing over and over again. And I still have fond memories of it, to this day. So seeing that the movie was coming out, for pure nostalgia purposes, I was like, oh, I'll definitely give this a shot. So, Adolfo, why don't you just tell us the basic plot of Rampage?
I mean, plot. Okay, so to go back real quick on the history, the game was released in the 80s in an arcade first. I don't know what year it was. It was mid 80s. Because I remember being a kid playing it in the arcade, and then it was ported to like all the different systems like a year or two after that. I think like the NES definitely had one. I think maybe the Sega Master System had one, and then after that were all the sequels. So just cleaning up the history there a bit. Okay, how do we go about this? So in the game, in the movie, we started off at like the space station thing where there's an accident and this thing blows up, and then all the different pieces hit Earth. All these different pieces that hit Earth from the satellite are like these vials of like I want to say mutagen, but that's like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But basically mutagen, right? It's just this liquid this gas that's gonna like turn things into bigger, uglier things. So it hits, it hits like Wyoming, and it hits a wolf. It hits like Florida, and it hits an alligator, or a crocodile, and then it hits somewhere like a San Diego zoo, and it hits this gorilla that Dwayne Johnson is taking care of. As Dwayne Johnson as a what is he in this movie? Primate. What is it? A primate.
Primatologist?
Primatologist, I think is what it is. Which I'm not sure if it's even a real thing.
Named Davis Okoye, bro, which is a wacky name.
Yeah, So he and then he's very attached to this gorilla, and he's very animal loving guy, and when the gorilla starts growing exponentially, he gets nervous, and then the gorilla breaks free, starts destroying things, but then the secret unnamed government organization played by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, headed by Jeffrey Dean Morgan, comes in, and kind of starts interfering. And basically, all these monsters start going to Chicago because of
It's not New York.
because of some ridiculous plan by the villains, played here by what's her face from Watchmen,
Malin Ackerman.
Malin Ackerman, and this guy. I think he was in The Office for a cup of coffee.
Yes, he was. That's him.
Jake
I
Lacey.
forgot his name though. There you go, Jake Lacey. He was in the last season.
Yeah, and they're like I think they're brother and sister. They're like a brother and sister team.
Correct.
They're part of this, basically this corporation that this is way too complicated already. But they're part of this corporation that developed this mutagen for like military purposes or something. And now it's gotten loose. I don't know what their plan was to get all the monsters to come to Chicago. I'm not exactly sure what the point of that was. I know they explain it, but it doesn't make any sense. But for whatever reason, they call them to Chicago in the same building that they're in to attack that building while they're in the building. And they did it on purpose. Why exactly? Why does that make sense? Also, they play like the most, it's like the most like 1992 straight to video villain I think I've ever seen in these two characters. They're so cheesy and so unbelievable in a movie about giant apes and fucking giant crocodiles. So unbelievably like terrible, these villains, that like I just wanted them to get eaten just so they'd go away from the movie. Yeah, I don't know. This movie is kind of weird. It's The action is kind of fun, I guess. Like, it's fun to see giant monsters beat each other up. But it's just so stupid. Like, it's just such a stupid movie. Like, I couldn't, like...
It's a straight-up popcorn flick for me. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. It was a fun ride. It was a blatant popcorn movie. But that's all its redeeming qualities. Like, don't go in here looking for like a logical, like, monster movie. It just kind of breaks every single law of like science in trying to tell its story. So you can't take this too seriously. And I'm pretty sure it's blatant too.
And it also has the same problem that I had with Pacific Rim, where there's so much destruction at the end of that movie, where it's like at a certain point you're like, okay, if this really happened, this would be a massive tragedy. Like, they literally knocked down fucking Sears Tower, which is the biggest tower. I know it's called the Willis Tower now, but it's the biggest, building in Chicago. I'm not sure if it's the biggest in the country. I don't know if it's bigger than the Empire State or not.
Oh, no. I think Willis Tower ranks. It's in the top 10, but it's not top anymore.
It's big. It's big. 90 some floors. It's like come on, like the way it falls down, it's like, I don't know, man. I'm not trying to make this serious, but like I remember 9/11 pretty clearly, and I didn't even live in New York or the general area. I lived in Pennsylvania at the time, and I just remember seeing the towers fall, and I'm just like, is this something we want to do in a movie? Like, it just seems kind of wrong, Like, I don't know. It kind of gave me an icky feeling.
Yeah, when that building fell and the smoke came out, like the smog, I was like, yeah, that if that doesn't conjure up 9/11 images, it gets a little uncomfortable, And
I know this is a movie about giant apes and giant crocodiles and giant wolves and shit, but did we need that? I guess, did we need a building falling down like that? I guess is my point in this movie. Like, you could have still had all the massive destruction without like knocking over a major fucking building. Like in New York, it was the Twin Towers, and here it was the Willis Tower, like the tallest building in the city, like a very recognizable American building, like knocking it down that way. Like, did we really need to do that? I don't know. It just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. It just felt kind of icky.
Yeah.
Also, does Jeffrey Dean Morgan not know any other character than Negan? Because I mean,
I was gonna say that. Like, so I like Jeffrey Dean Morgan here, but it was obvious he was channeling Negan in this agent role, because like the cockiness, the cocky demeanor of his character here, just how was that not Negan? And I was telling I took my mother to see this because she's a big Jeffrey Dean Morgan mark, so I knew she'd like this.
I
I
mean,
was
I
like, he
am
was
too.
Negan
Like
the whole time, you know.
I am too. But like, it's like, come on, man. Like, you have other characters. I've seen them. You know, like, and maybe. I mean, he was probably. I mean, you got to figure he was probably filming this in the middle of Walking Dead seasons, right? So, like, maybe he just isn't out of the character or something. But I don't even watch Walking Dead. I didn't recognize that was Negan. Like, just from seeing like the clips of Walking Dead that like I've seen online, I'm like, he's fucking Negan right now. Like, what the fuck is this? Like
Down
that
to
kind of
like
like
the,
it's right. It's like
the
that.
goofy
It's like that
smile and the
swagger.
laugh. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like, come on, dude, do something else. That
yeah.
said, I do kind of want to see a like a buddy cop movie with Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Dwayne Johnson now because I think they had good chemistry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Speaking of that, like, I mean, The Rock was. I mean, The Rock was The Rock here, but like, he was still good. Like, you know, he's obviously the lead protagonist, and you know, he's treated that way. You know, with and you just follow. I don't want to say you sympathize with him. That's like the wrong word, but you know, he's able to carry the load of the story, you know, well enough. You know, he has that charisma. He has, you know, the kind of cockiness, the kind of, you know, charming quality to him, like we alluded to earlier. And he's carries this movie pretty much on his back. You know, Naomi Harris, with all due respect, she was almost kind of a non-factor here, if I do may say. She really had much to do with the material.
Yeah, she's an Oscar-nominated actress. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. And she didn't really have much to do, which is kind of disappointing. Malin Ackerman and Jake Lacey were pretty much there to be the butt of a joke.
They were terrible. Their villains were so ridiculous.
Yeah,
I hated their villains. Like, I didn't hate their villains because I thought they like I was supposed to hate them because they were the bad guys. I hated their villains because they were terrible. Like, they were just poorly written, poorly acted. I just wanted them to die just because like I didn't want them on the screen anymore.
They had that X-Pac heat, you're saying.
Yeah.
But our boy Joe Manganiello was there for a cup of coffee too, which I didn't even know he
that's
was
the
in
other
this
thing.
movie.
Like they made a whole, they gave him a whole intro, right? Like they gave him like this badass intro. I'm like, okay. Then 10 minutes later, spoilers, he's dead. So like, I mean, like, okay, what was the point of that then?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously the two MVPs here were Jeffrey Dean Morgan, more so because he channeled Negan, which I love the Negan character, but it's like, you know, he used it a little bit too much here, but I still liked what he did. And then The Rock, obviously, you know, The Rock is The Rock. So again, it's a straight up popcorn movie. I think The Rock even said in one of the interviews that probably on Good Morning America that it is a popcorn movie. So I love that he just admitted it on the air. It's a popcorn movie.
Yeah.
You know, but which has its moments. That's good action. The story's ridiculous, but I mean, I don't expect people to really take this movie too
Mm-hmm.
seriously. It's meant to be, you know, destruction porn, and it achieves that goal fairly well. So if you're into that stuff, you know, and I dare say, if you're into movies like the Transformers films, which, you know, it's disaster porn all day long, you know, you'll like Rampage. You know, just kind of take it for what it is. Those who kind of like aren't into movies like that should probably skip it. But you know, if you want to just have a good time, you know, see, you know, giant monsters, you know, beat up a city, you know, kind of wreak havoc, then, you know, you can't go wrong with this. There's worse ways to spend 2 hours. But definitely not rush out to go see a movie. But, you know, a decent popcorn flick.
So, I mean, you mentioned The Rock. I mean, you mentioned Dwayne, and you know he carries the movie. Look, I mean, the dude can make pretty much anything better. It might not make the film overall good, but it makes it better by his presence because he's just a charming son of a bitch, right? Like you want to watch Dwayne Johnson do stuff, whether it's like, you know, like punch a torpedo in Fast and the Furious, or like, you know, hang out with a giant ape in this movie. Like, you just want to see him do stuff because he's fun to watch. He's charming,
or dress around as a tooth fairy.
Well, I never saw that one, but he's fun to watch. He's got a great personality. He's got great on-screen presence. So he's not the problem in this film. He's very funny and likable in this film. And again, he's got really good chemistry with Jeffrey Dean Morgan in this. Like, I honestly do kind of want to see them in like some sort of buddy cop movie or something. but it's just this movie is so dumb. Like I can't. The movie's dumb as shit. Like it's really dumb. I can't. I don't know if I can watch this again. I think like you know how you should watch this movie. You should watch it by, if you ever rented or go to the movie, just go to the end. Just don't even watch the whole like hour and a half setup. Just go to the very end and watch the monkey and the gorilla and the crocodile and the wolf beat each other up for like 20 minutes. That's really what you're there for. And I'll give it that. It's better. It got more straightforward to the action than like the last Godzilla movie did. But it's still like, I don't know. I can't honestly recommend this. It's kind of bad.
I mean, the film knows its audience, which is why I, purposely said, if you're into stuff like this, specifically Transformers, where it's nothing but that for 2 hours straight, you'll like Rampage. That's more down your alley. But if you're not, kind of like, us, I mean, I like the popcorn movie here and there, but, I mean, we kind of like a variety of stuff. So, but if your primary interest is not seeing monsters fight each other and tear down a city, then you should definitely skip this one. But
something
I mean,
I
had
to mention, but I can't remember what it was.
But I mean, either way, I did have a good time watching this. So I mean, I'll take that over a movie that I particularly loathe, like Pirates of the Caribbean. Fuck that movie. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, there was something else I wanted to talk about this movie, and I don't remember what the hell it was. There was something else that really got to me, and I just can't remember what it was. Yeah, I lost it. I think I lost it.
All right. Well, if you remember before we close up, just shout it out. But anyway, with that, I guess we're going to wrap up for Perspective episode 109. Any questions, comments, feedback, send an email to fpmpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, you can follow me on Twitter @SportsGuy515. You can go check out the video from the Scarface panel we talked about earlier, the one that made me Twitter famous for about 2 days. You can also follow me on Instagram @SportsGuy515. I have been kind of going to that lately as well, kind of posting more stuff on the Instagram. And you can follow me on Snapchat as well @SportsGuy515. Adolfo, plugs.
@Adolfo_Acosta for my Twitter, also @Essential Films on Twitter. You can check us out on Facebook at the Essential Films on Facebook. And EssentialFilmsPodcast.com is the website. We just put up 2 new episodes. Episode 22 is the Superman episode. The long-awaited Superman episode is finally up. Getting some good numbers on that. And the bonus episode, which actually is episode 21, is where it's just us kind of free-forming. We talk like for 40 minutes. We talk about Big Lebowski. We talk about the Scarface before you went to Scarface. We talked about Long Goodbye. We talked about some bad 80s movies and some of the stuff you saw at Alamo Drafthouse. So yeah, that one, so both of them are up now. Our next movie we're going to be doing is The Empire Strikes Back. We hope to drop it before May the 4th, but we'll see. That's currently that's the goal. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and great timing on Superman, because I think this week was the anniversary.
I know
of
that
Superman.
was totally not even like I dropped it on the anniversary day and was totally not planned. It was just like complete coincidence.
So it worked out in the end for both.
I'm planning the Empire Strikes Back one. I'm not planning this one.
Yeah,
I didn't plan that one.
Right. And then also, you can also follow us on Facebook at the Force Perspective Movie Podcast Facebook page. You can give us a like there. And you can also follow the show on Twitter @FP Movie Podcast. That's the official Twitter account for Force Perspective. Next week is Avengers: Infinity War. So next episode will be.
What's that? Is that a small indie movie that we're gonna try and get to see?
It's getting a lot of buzz already. Yeah. IndieWire's talking about it, so we got to talk about it too. So that'll be the sole focus of our next episode, Avengers: Infinity War. After that, we're going to probably take a week off with Force Perspective. And we're going to drop the new Essential Film show, which we are, like you said, we are timing that for a specific day. Because you admitted it's The Empire Strikes Back, you can probably guess what day want to drop it on. So I'll leave you to figure that out. And then we'll be back the week after to kind of catch up on the other films not called Avengers Infinity War. So yeah, we got some good content coming your way. So definitely follow us and wait for them to drop and check them out. Do you have any final words before we get out of here?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. So on behalf of Adolfo, I'm Sports Guy 515.
I will say this. Yeah. Sorry, before you go, like you should try to get another 2,000 retweeted thing so that we can get some more publicity, man.
That's what I'm saying. That was the one good thing I was saying to myself as this was happening. I was like, oh man, I hope this spills over into the show. I hope, but we'll see. Maybe with this episode, like since we talked about the whole thing at the beginning, maybe we'll get some extra listeners because of it. But one can hope. Fingers crossed. But with that again,
follows?
I did. Yeah, I didn't get as much as I probably assumed I would, but I did get quite a few new followers. So again, if you're listening, what's up? Thank you for listening. Thank you for following. And I guess with that, on behalf of Adolfo, Sports Guy 515, once again, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, we are out of here.